this is Hardline, Destructoid's video game news podcast. I'm Jordan Devore, and today I've got Conrad Zimmerman with me.
Hello.
And Stephen Hansen.
Good to be back, friends.
Yes. Well, is it really? It's just the three of us and Bill, our lovely engineer. It's kind of been a really slow week again. We scraped by last time thanks to the wit of Max Scoville, but
now we are lacking in wit. We have no wit.
I know I am, yeah. This is scary.
You just have twits.
Yes, we do. Lots of twits. I think the big thing, well, I don't really want to, I guess we can start with Nintendo. I kind of didn't want to start right off with that, but let's do it. So the thing this morning that was kind of big is that Iwata is taking a 50% pay cut. Yeah, 50%, and other board members are taking 20 to 30%. Miyamoto's taking a 30% pay cut. This is just going right along with all the recent, Nintendo is doomed, but maybe not news. Everyone and their mother having an opinion about what they should do or shouldn't do. So I guess we could just kind of launch right into this. Well, first I should say they're having an investor meeting that will be there will be some kind of announcement they'll be making, and that will be happening in a few hours, I think, or later today because of the time zone difference. So what we say here today in this episode, if you're not with us live, could be way off. We don't know what they're going to say, what they're going to announce. But I figured we should start by saying, should they or shouldn't they start making games for smartphones? They said they aren't going to, but is that something they should do? I don't think they should. I think that's a terrible idea.
I think it's something they should do if they can do it right. And my kind of perspective on Nintendo is that they really only, know how to develop for their own stuff. They're only comfortable developing for the hardware that they're intimately familiar with. So I don't have an expectation that stuff that they make for phones is going to be their, same level of quality we've come to expect. Which makes me nervous.
Well, people keep saying using Mario as an example, which I think is
Mario's just about the worst example you could come up with.
I think Nintendo could surely make something awesome for mobile if they wanted to.
If they wanted to make a badass Tetris attack for mobile,
sure,
I'm there.
WarioWare would work on touchscreens. I mean, it works for the DS, fine.
The problem is that they don't want to do like a big, full-fledged game development with any of their properties on mobile. So what you're either gonna, if you do anything, it's gonna be a little thing, and then how do you expect some little minigame throwaway thing to compete with the infinite amount of free crap that you can play on your mobile device at any point in time?
For starters, they're fucking Nintendo. That has some weight, and they could get some push behind it. They could really launch a campaign if they wanted to do it. I don't think they want to do it, and I don't blame them. It's not their wheelhouse.
It's not. Well, in a lot of ways, the big thing for me that would be frightening to see them get into this is that they are all about premium-priced games and have been for a long time. And to see them go up against games where that's really not the norm at all. I mean, you've got Square Enix putting out expensive iOS games, but for the most part, it's free-to-play or dollar games. And
no, I mean, Nintendo doesn't lower their first-party games for like 4 years. Like, they don't want to just make a free thing. It's probably like some sort of devaluing they see, I guess. But I mean, they don't want to do it, so they're not going to do it. But I mean, at least having a Nintendo app of some kind is a decent thing, especially as people watch less and less TV. Finding a new way to market and maybe pump out videos or some cool interactive things to pimp out new games.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would love for them to find a way that they can add value to their existing franchises, not necessarily by creating games specifically, but software that enhances their brand and adds value to some of their other game products, as they tend to do with their mobile and console interaction stuff that they have had a real fixation on for a couple of generations. But I can't see them using someone else's hardware to do it.
Yeah, it's like they could, make a Nintendo official Pokédex app, and they could make, all these weird little offshoot periphery type things that Nintendo's always made, but they've always done it for their consoles, and they're not gonna do it elsewhere.
Now, if they made their own phone.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Which
you really want
people
Nintendo
have
making a
seriously suggested this.
People have seriously suggested it, and it's not. That's the way I see it happening. If it's going to happen,
it's going to happen, yeah.
Yeah, I see it as one of those Nintendo partners with a cell phone manufacturer, produces their own device and puts out exclusive games for it, and it's not. That doesn't seem like it would be successful here in this market. I wonder if they could make a push in Japan to make that a success there. I don't think it would fly here, much in the same way Street Pass is not as valuable a feature for North American DS or 3DS users as it is in Japan, where it seems to get a lot of constant traffic. Because
how has the Xperia done in Japan?
I don't know. That would be
no idea whatsoever.
Yeah, it'd be.
And that's a situation too with a company that has a much broader electronics experience. That really could have, if you'd think if someone was going to have a chance of pulling this off, it would be Sony.
Right.
But they haven't seemed to have had a ton of success with Xperia. It's certainly not here.
Enough to keep going.
Enough to keep going, though. So. And then...
and I think we're getting more to a point where there can be a proper convergence of phones and handhelds and all this. So maybe... they've been playing a long game with the Xperia to finally. I mean, we're getting PlayStation Now betas rolling out soon, right? So.
So people in chat are talking about the N-Gage, which, yeah, I'm reminded of, and also before that, I was reminded of that Microsoft made some phone for. I don't know if it was teens or pre-teens, but that thing bombed so hard.
It had a stupid 4-letter name.
I cannot think of the dumb name, but that's kind of where I would see that kind of Nintendo smartphone go.
I think Nintendo should name their smartphone the N-Gage.
That would be, if they were doing it just to be funny, yes, they should do that. But we haven't even really hit on the major thing about this is the Wii U and what to do about that. I'm increasingly of the opinion that the Wii U is just going to be another Nintendo 64 or GameCube, and there's no real turning it around.
I don't think it was ever going to be anything else.
No, yeah.
That's a good point.
It was, I mean, it was always going to be a box that you play Nintendo games and occasional other weird third-party stuff. And, Nintendo doesn't need... Nintendo's not competing, and they made a choice out of this. They're not competing in the console war. So success for the Wii U just means it being successful enough that Nintendo is able to stay in business, keep making games, and possibly keep making hardware. They don't have to. No one's gonna replicate Wii.
Well,
no way.
That's what we have to remember. The Wii was a perfect storm of mass market endorsement and success, and it was one of those situations you could not possibly have made that happen if you tried.
I mean, people are sitting there saying how Apple stocks at their height it was like $700 a share now. Oh, they're only $400 a share. It's like what?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. I think that Nintendo. Hopefully they've figured out, that this wasn't going to happen twice. I would hope that they knew that a long time ago, but it doesn't sound like from the projections that they quite realized the situation that they were in.
Those forecasts seemed out of touch with the reality.
They did a bit seem, especially you have weeks where they're just selling a few thousand units.
Well, I mean, but that forecast, the initial forecast and the revision was like months in between. So right, because when the initial forecast came, it seemed a little high, but we didn't know how badly the Wii would sell at that point.
Yeah, and I think that but I think we needed to go in with our expectations measured against the history of Nintendo as a company. Which they've had great success with the Super Nintendo when the market was smaller. They had less success when the market opened up, and they become a niche company that makes really great games and really great hardware for those games specifically. But that's what they do, and if that's not what you want, I get that. You're not going to get third parties on Nintendo.
Well, I think
we
that's
need to know that now.
I think it's really a consumer crisis, or people that play games where they're, people that grew up with the Super Nintendo just reigning over everything, and just kind of Nintendo was the default name for a console among. It was like, oh, it's a Nintendo, right?
It still is, and for a lot of people,
so I mean,
supplanted that, but
yeah, I mean, and then coming from that, people. I mean, even though again, it was the same with the N64 and the GameCube. They didn't win the sales race. They didn't have as much third party, blah blah. But people were still thinking, okay, Nintendo's Nintendo. They're the premier game, one of the big game companies. But it's always been it's a box you buy to play Nintendo games.
Yeah, it has been for a very, very long time. And it even stretches back, back into the Super Nintendo era. They and the NES. They always kept a very fierce control over access to their hardware, and they, not to say that they treated third parties disrespectfully necessarily, but they don't.
Well, it was the quality control after the market flood.
Yep. And it was important for them to maintain that, and it was the right thing to do and the smart thing to do, but it's always made them very difficult to work with. And I think that the crash, they were reacting to that in trying to launch their console, and I don't know if they ever got past it in terms of keeping that hardware accessible.
I've seen, as part of this conversation people are having about what Nintendo should do, I've seen people suggest that they should do more deals like the one they have with Platinum and Bayonetta 2, which I think could be a good idea. I mean, Bayonetta 2, at least, that individual game seems to be one that people really want, and that is a reason for some people to get a Wii U.
I mean, the Wii U is basically the last console that's going to be sort of riding on just getting exclusives, which is such a almost an outdated thing now, because we don't care as much, aside from first party stuff. But
yeah, look at PS4. Look at PS4 and Xbox One sales, which were insane in the first 24 hours, the first month they had, with basically no games. And I say that as someone who likes the PS4 and doesn't dislike the Xbox One necessarily. It's just nice that I can beat the Xbox One at this point. I don't hate the thing. I don't own one though, but. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The idea of exclusives is largely going away.
Just picking up some new IP. I also really do think though they should continue to farm out, because they have so many properties that have fan bases. They farmed out Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, and that was amazing. And they just need to do a little more of that, I guess.
I wish they would do more of that with even smaller teams, like straight up go to indie developers and with some of these properties.
But that's their controlling. It's not going to. I mean, they're like, okay, Retro, do you want to do Donkey Kong or Metroid? And we're going to do Donkey Kong. And like, okay.
Damn right you are.
Everyone else is making a Metroid game, apparently.
Gun to their head. Yeah, you're doing Donkey Kong.
But let's not forget Metroid Other M. Let's remember that this doesn't.
Examples of it being a disaster.
It doesn't always work, and
it
when
doesn't.
It doesn't work, I think it reinforces their reticence. And so I want them to strike up deals, but I honestly think that the way Nintendo is gonna A, feel the most comfortable, B, get the quality control they want, and C, expand, is to develop second-party companies, buy some companies.
Yeah, take development in-house.
Well, that's worked really well for Sony with Santa Monica. They had the deal with that game company.
It worked well with Nintendo for Microsoft too. Yep. And that's I think the strategy that Nintendo's going to have to take on if they want to have it, if they really want to be a big three player. If they want it to just be a fight between Sony and Microsoft, and they pick up the leavings of their dedicated audience, fine, and they'll probably be just fine with that. It'll take some time for the Nintendo fans to come around, but they'll buy it.
They could transition into that business model and be okay. I mean, it's obviously not ideal, but yeah.
And you're gonna get bumps when they release software, like with the Wii U this Christmas sold well. They had a new Mario. You're gonna have new Smash Brothers, a new Zelda eventually. All you know.
Yeah, I really do hope for the Wii U's sake that once all the currently announced games are out, that helps. At least, I mean, it's going to help no matter what, but I mean, it's significantly help because that's going to be sad if it's.
But then you do set that sort of precedent in people's mind of Wii U has no games. You know? It's the same thing every time I write something about a really good Vita game. They're like, oh, just one more good game and I'll pick it up, and that's been going on for a year.
And the other thing I guess we could say about this is we don't even really know the future of hardware for consoles in general. I think handhelds are a little bit different, but like Nintendo could not be making. Well, Nintendo probably always will try to make hardware, but Sony and Microsoft, we may be moving to. We may have away from dedicated hardware.
Are you telling me we might have a one console future, but it'll just be Nintendo because
not really
gotten out of the business?
That sounds bad. No.
But that's the thing. If you go along the trajectory with the Wii U of them trying to make the sort of just cheapest, low impact hardware that's just for playing Nintendo games, you can conceivably see them still making hardware when everyone else is doing something else. Because that's all they want to do is make little boxes that you play Nintendo games on.
That are not that expensive for them to make. What I was getting at is the whole like PlayStation Now, the streaming over the internet. Once that technology is figured out and it's more or less the same as what we're used to now in terms of visual fidelity and latency, we could all just have little tiny boxes that are inexpensive and
infrastructure
are point.
Is always going to be an issue in the United States.
Right, and again, like this could be very long. This could be way into the future. But I think
in South Korea,
they
can PlayStation Now all they want with their good internet.
We can all move to South Korea.
But that's not necessarily going to stop Nintendo from making their little boxes and only making their games, available.
Oh, of course, yeah.
For that, and
in 20 years, you're going to just have another game cube that is like a cube, but like this big now. And it's just a little Nintendo peripheral.
Will it have a handle? Because it needs to have that handle.
It'll be like a
Man, I love the GameCube.
Like like this big, runs all your Nintendo games.
I actually really like the GameCube for third-party games, which is weird.
The GameCube had excellent third-party games. It wasn't that, like, Resident Evil 4 was out on that, for Christ's sake. It was awesome. There was a lot of good stuff on the GameCube, but it was very sort of slowly pushed out. It was a very, very prolonged cycle on the GameCube. And they need some bigger hits right out the gate, as evidenced by the success of the Wii. I mean, they just had one successful game. That could be all it takes.
And that game defined the system and continues to define the system for a lot of people. So, yeah. Microsoft, I was going to transition into this before, but whatever, we were way past that. Microsoft bought Gears of War, and Conrad and I were talking about this. It's funny because they basically already owned it. That's the way they presented it, is like, hey, this is our property, no one else is getting it. I mean, the idea of Gears on PlayStation has always seemed really foreign, and I don't think that's ever going to happen now. Well, for sure it's not now, but I don't think it was going to happen.
It was probably like this is like an outright snip the last threads sort of deal.
Yeah, they probably just, all right, now we own everything. Just put it in boxes, ship it over.
Yeah. I figure they're going to have to just bundle the first 3 games on Xbox One while they work on making a new one.
That will sell well if they do that.
Yeah, but first they have to put the first 2 out as games for gold, or the second 2 out for games for gold. Because that was, I know I was real pumped when I got the original Gears of War from Microsoft as a freebie for my login dedicated membership in Xbox Live.
Almost as much as that happy birthday, here's 5 Microsoft points or whatever they give you, here's a dime.
Yeah, I think I had bought Gears of War, because I came to the 360 a little later, and after a year or so of it had been out, and whatever. And Gears was fairly newish, but I think I still went to the store and paid like $10 for it when I got it.
Wow.
Yeah, So to have it come now, what, 8 years later in my freebie, it's like, wow, you're really on top of it. Here comes Sony. They're just dropping new shit, like 4-month-old games,
Well, and the thing about the games with
one
gold,
after another.
The thing with games for gold, or games with gold, whatever it's called, like I can see someone making the argument, hey, not everyone owns Gears of War. There are lots of Xbox 360 owners now that the console's been out for so long. But the thing is, like the people who are really aware of this promotion would already own the game. They're really dropping the ball on it.
Yeah, yeah. Although I'm sure that there are those people who only, we only play Call of Duty and Madden crowd, who have their Xbox Live because they, are going to play their Madden or their Call of Duty, and they're like, hey, a free game, and maybe that gets them into the franchise. But god damn, it just seems so silly. Like, why wouldn't you put out Gears of War 2?
That's the one I'd pick,
pick one. Put out. That's the one I'd put out. The hell do I know, though?
But so the thing is that Black Tusk, are they shelving the original IP they're working on?
That whole situation has been really weird. That's my understanding. Phil Spencer kept saying a bunch of things about how, the thing we showed at E3, which was sort of this like
just proof of concept,
like, Unreal Tech demo thing is what he called it. But then they were saying, no, that's our like new stealth IP. We don't really know the future of it, but I guess we're doing Gears now, so I guess it's shelved.
I mean, that's not a vote of confidence for one. It's like, oh, we were working on this original game that we really want to do, but I guess we have to do Gears now.
Yeah.
That's sad, actually.
Yeah.
One thing that's worth pointing out is that Black Tusk, if you've never heard of them, they were previously called Microsoft Vancouver. So it's not like some random developer they got here. It's part of the Microsoft whatever. But I agree. I would rather probably have a new IP than another Gears after the last one. I hope they can do good things for Gears.
And the last one, it's not even that there's been a bad Gears game.
It's not been bad, no.
And maybe that's where we need the series to stay. How much further? I would want Gears of War to do something really dramatically different to shake it up and to make it, seem interesting. Some, new enemy, or the locust-human conflict to me is really run its course.
I feel like that's always something Sony has done with its IP is as much as sometimes we want, Medieval 3 or sequels, they're not afraid to just sort of be like, all right, we're done with this. Instead of, buying him out and clinging and, okay, there's more Gears coming even though no one really wants it too much.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what the gameplay would be like, and you can only chainsaw the Locust so many times before that just becomes boring, which is insane to say that chainsawing a thing in half is boring, but that's where I'm at after having played that much Gears. I will say though that the bayonet gun that charge you do in Gears Judgment is awesome. So
after Gears, we got inundated with heavy third-person, chest-high wall shooters too. So.
Exactly. The whole cover-based shooting mechanic is not very interesting anymore to me.
No, it's just, at least it's not compelling enough on its own. It
would need something else.
It's one of those features where if you're playing a shooter, it's expected that you have chest-high cover now, which sucks for me because I'm absolutely terrible about playing in cover. It's just not a skill I enjoy. And
just play Vanquish.
Yeah, I tried that, and I had a seizure. I was like, what the fuck's going on? And I'm like, I'm dead. Okay, all right. But at least, it wasn't followed immediately by some 12-year-old laughing their ass off and shot at me, so that's got that going for it.
Okay, Conception 2, Steven, I really want you to talk about this.
So, if you don't know,
what is it first off?
Conception 2 is an RPG. It's a sequel to Conception, Please Have My Baby.
That's actually the title?
That's the title of the first game. It's a Vita and 3DS JRPG, just really super grind-heavy dungeon crawler. And the idea is that you, as the main character, are God's gift because your seed can successfully breed star children with the power of the star god. So there's a bunch of women in the game that you talk to with like a full voice 3D, dialogue, whatever, and you just want to keep having sex with them and making babies, and then you fight your babies against monsters until they're not useful enough, at which point you release them to go do their civic duty and make the world better and, upgrade shops. And then you breed more babies to replace them, and you fight those babies, and then those babies get released, and then you breed more babies and fight the babies. So it's just slave child labor ad nauseum. But people were very, very upset in the comments section because
you previewed it for Destructoid.
I previewed it.
Yeah.
And you got all the Destructoid usually has pretty good people commenting, but this again was every time there's something kind of controversial, you get like all the worst people. You got this person shouldn't preview this game because he doesn't like anime. I love anime. JRPGs are my favorite genre. That doesn't mean this game is good. Then you got then you got all the people yelling about this review was terrible. I thought it was a Jim Sterling review, and it's like, this isn't a review. And then you got all the straw man arguments and the goalpost shifting. Well, why are you demonizing this for being creepy when you kill people in all these other games? And I'm like, I'm not talking about all those other games. I demonize those other games too. I don't like Call of Duty. I think it's stupid. So that comment section was terrible.
I didn't look at it.
That's the point.
That was my fear. So the game to me and Conrad, kind of looks just like Persona.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I was like, wow, okay, so I'm going to build relationships with these other characters, and then the strength of my relationship is going to determine the abilities of the thing that we produce together. It sounds exactly like the mechanics of Persona.
Well, it's more of an inverse of Persona because you have just this one place where you have all the people there that you can talk to and have conversations with, and like that's it. You're not like walking around a city and meeting people under different circumstances only at certain times, blah blah blah. So it's an inverse where Persona, the main thing is you do all your daily duties for the month, and then you just go and blast through a dungeon for like the last day, and then you just keep going with your life sim. This is the opposite. This is like, yeah, okay, go talk to one person at this place really quick, and then just go grind in a dungeon endlessly to get better items and to get your stats up. Which is one of the main things, aside from it just being a full giant anime cliche of harem and all that bullshit, is I don't want to just grind children in dungeons for hours on end.
Hang on. Set that aside for out of context.
I swear, none of us want to
grind children in dungeons. No.
The NSA is on our ass. They've been recording this whole thing.
I like that we all had to leap to respond to that because silence would be like tacit acknowledgement that it was okay in some way. No, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Neither of the games are going to be something that I can, I have Persona 4. I think it's super cool, conceptually. It's really, really interesting, but it's too much of a dedication that I'd have to make to actually play through it. And then it would be a similar thing with Conception, but it's unfortunate. Actually, that almost sounds better to me. The idea of everybody is in that little hub world, then you go and do because in Persona, when I would play it, I would feel like, am I going to the right place?
But that's the great thing about Persona is you cannot do everything in one playthrough. It's life. It's not. It's not gamey.
I have a life.
It's not maxed out.
I have a life.
It's not just maxed out the systems with the best exploits you can.
I don't need 2 lives. I have a life. I want games. If I wanted things to be miserable and unhappy, I'd walk out my door instead of sitting on my couch.
I think things can be miserable and unhappy on your couch as well.
They can be, but why would I opt to do that?
Yep. Moldenite in chat is asking, is Pokemon objectively less creepy than Conception? Kind of interesting to think about.
Well,
it is pretty fucked up as well, to be fair.
Cockfighting, there's nothing good about cockfighting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's I'm surprised we didn't see a whole backlash against Pokemon in the Michael Vick thing. Nobody drew the comparison between Michael Vick and...
Conception isn't... Honestly, and that's the thing, I don't think Conception is really creepy. I think it's really mundane and boring. It's just a super huge anime cliche. Oh, here's all these teenage girls that really want to fuck you, so fuck them and make babies. Like, and I'm like, okay, that's what you can do, I guess.
If I must. Yeah. Yeah, Pokemon is pretty messed up. I mean, isn't there all that stuff about the first couple games being about war with the gym leaders, and there's all these allusions to war or whatever? Yeah.
The writing in Pokemon is really, really interesting at times, though, which is really...
Well, the new games especially, there's dead Pokemon, there's all-out war, there's coming back to life. It's so weird.
They're growing the narrative up with the audience that followed it.
Yeah.
Making it about social issues.
No, it's the same thing though. It's a weird conceit that they gamify and then they go full bore into.
But at the same time, they're a lot less subtle now. It's like they acknowledge that their audience has gotten older but dumber. I mean, there's no subtext. They're not trying to hide the war themes.
Not really.
Or anything like that.
No,
now
it's like the first time you
this is an evil corporation!
No, I mean, the whole Team Flare aesthetics thing is it's so on the nose and kind of like, okay. But like the first time you went to Lavender Town, and like, this music is unsettling as fuck.
It still creeps me out.
There's a cemetery. Why? What is this? It's cool.
Ghost Pokemon. The actual ghost, not the ghost Pokemon. Not ghost Pokemon, ghosts.
Like
ghosts. That are Pokemon. I mean, I love Gengar. He's probably my favorite Pokemon.
Yeah, but ghosts of Pokemon.
Yep. Not right. Just not right. So I can't really speak to this, and I don't think any of us play EVE Online, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Another war happened. I mean, there's always probably wars, but like several $100,000s worth of ships were destroyed in this war, and it spawned from a late bill payment, which is just the best. That's all you need to know really about EVE Online as someone who wants to read about it and not play it.
Are there always wars? Because if there's always wars, aren't people always just losing?
Well, maybe not.
I heard.
That'd be interesting though. Like, what is EVE in its like peace state versus EVE in its war? Like, it's such a weird.
I think it's like real life again. There's mining in it. It's really repetitive. I'm led to believe. There's maintaining an organization, which is how a lot of the social engineering comes about. Yeah, I don't really know.
Now as I understand it, World War I started because Archduke Ferdinand forgot to pay his phone bill. Isn't that right? Isn't that how we got into World War I?
It's true. It's a fact.
Yeah.
True fact.
So I think it's fascinating that here we have a situation that like everybody understands that sometimes a bill comes in late, like in the real world, and nobody dies as a result of a bill coming in a few days late. But we in gaming life create these extreme scenarios, things that are that take something to the most specific painful point that we can put it at. You look at games like DayZ and Rust, and here we have this open world, and everybody could be building, cooperating, doing stuff, but humanity takes it right down the path of fucking one another. And that's going to be the same thing with EVE. Everything in EVE has got all of this sort of tenuous alliance, and it's very political from everything that I've read. And it would just take something like a minor inconvenience, because while the stakes are certainly higher in a game like EVE, where people have invested a lot of money, than in something else that it doesn't really matter, that somebody comes and fucks it up and wipes it off. That's still how it's going to work. It's still going to be something, some small, insignificant detail, some minor conflict.
There's always somebody finger on the trigger and just itching to play cowboy and go off.
Yep.
Well, yeah, gamers, I feel like it's a fair statement for a lot of these online games to say that gamers are basically just looking for any old excuse to fuck each other over. You mentioned Rust. We've been playing Rust. It doesn't take anything. That's a game where you can start with nothing and still be killed because you existed. And I don't mean that as like a negative thing. That's really interesting. Not necessarily fun, but super interesting.
I mean, I don't play a lot of multiplayer games, and I generally consider myself a nice, calm person. But when I played GTA Online, all I wanted to do was just kill people. And
there's no real consequences
blow up their cars
in most cases. Yeah, me too. I had the same experience in GTA Online. There's a person, I'm gonna fuck him over.
So I did that for 2 hours, and I didn't touch it again.
I did the exact same thing. So.
Yeah, God, I think I spent 2 hours playing Grand Theft Auto 5 or Grand Theft Auto Online, and then it killed any interest I had in playing GTA 5 after that. Like I've not.
You didn't finish it, did you? Yeah.
No.
I never really. I played maybe an hour and a half of 5. The core
I never
game.
did a single mission. I just like driving around. In that recreation city.
You're the other way, aren't you?
I am so the other way. When GTA 3 came out, I got burnt out on that game because all my friends wanted to do was run around and shoot things and blow it up. And that got tired for me after a couple of hours.
You gotta make your own fun, Conrad.
No, I don't want to make my own fun. I bought a product. The product's supposed to contain fun already. I don't need to go out and make my own fun.
It's like Legos.
Yeah, I like Legos, don't get me wrong, but when I bought Legos, I knew that I was going to have to build the shit myself, and that was going to be the fun. When I buy a video game, now there are exceptions. Again, like Rust. I bought Rust knowing I wasn't going to enjoy it.
I bought satisfying moments, but yes.
Yes, I bought Rust with the conceit that it was largely going to make me unhappy.
And it succeeded.
Yes, it succeeded wonderfully. In fact, just at the point when it was starting to make me happy, the server that I was playing on switched to PvP, and it ceased to make me happy. So it delivered on all of its promise.
I'm so afraid to go back in there because I'm probably dead. We have that shared house in there. I'm sure I'm dead.
I'm sure someone's gone. I'm sure someone's gone in there by now, and broken into our house. But that's beside. But by and large, the appeal of make your own fun in this world isn't generally enough for me.
I mean, for me, open world.
I want something to motivate me. I want it to mark.
And I totally like for me, I've never open world games. Like occasionally, I'll play an open world game that actually has a follow a plot or whatever. But open world games for me have always been something that you just get around with people, and you just play in the open world for a couple hours and then never touch it again. I remember spending a whole day with friends playing Ultimate Spider-Man, where we would just try to find the tallest building in the city, jump from the very highest point, and then like right a couple inches before the ground, do that like web zip away and like not kill yourself. And we just sat there and jumped off buildings for like several hours, and like that was it.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. There's fun to be had there, but that's not enough to stick around in an open world for a few hours. Isn't enough to justify a game purchase for me. I want to have some kind of goal, something to do, something I know that is a progress point. And so yeah, I mean, from GTA 3 on, I mean, I really just do the missions. That's the only thing that appeals to me. I want to see what kind of mission design they come up with, and how they work into the plot. Those things interest me. But the idea of just running around, getting people angry at me, and then making them chase me around the city while I try to kill as many as possible, it's the same thing every time.
No, and for me, in the little GTA I did play, it wasn't even about really wreaking havoc. It was just I was so amazed by how faithfully. Because I'm from San Francisco, so like the California sort of, I mean, down to like road signs and the colors of curbs, like everything was so accurate and weird. So just, you know, tooling along and just looking at things, not even, you know, fucking with people, NPCs anyways.
Speaking of that, did you see the new Infamous trailer that came out
Seattle,
this week?
The Seattle,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's so, wow.
That looks really impressive. Like, I love the city of Seattle, and I any opportunity I have to get up there, I take it because it's a lot of fun. Before we moved to Portland, I was saying this is a city I could live in, having lived in Phoenix for almost 20 years. And I really, really like Seattle. And to see all of just the little touches, even just in that trailer of places that I've been to and around, and even just visual perspectives. I've looked up at buildings. Yeah, they have the car wash with the elephant that's like 3 blocks from the convention center. Yeah, it's there.
Trippy to see that so faithfully realized in the game. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, there are merits to open world and open narrative design that I think people can enjoy, and I do get those experiences. I don't want it to seem like oh god, fuck that wandering around, because I play Fallout, dude. I understand wandering around, but at least, you know, in Fallout I know that there are things I'm going to find out there to do that are going to compel me to keep going.
That's what I'm looking for in open world games, I think, going forward. Someone mentioned The Witcher 3, and I think this would be a good example of that, of where the world is interesting to explore, and you can kind of do what you want, but at the same time, you will stumble upon, whether you want to or not, emergent story opportunities. And so you are still moving that story forward. Because I agree. I was never one of those GTA players to go around just killing people. That didn't appeal to me for whatever reason. So, yeah,
probably a good thing.
Yeah, probably a good thing. I'm okay with that as a person. But yeah, I think that'll do it for us for this episode. That actually turned out way better than I thought, given what we had to talk about. So, good job, us! Yay! So this is, if you're viewing live, this will be going up on YouTube later this week. It's also going to be on iTunes. I search Destructoid Hardline on Google, you'll find it. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at DToydJordan. Steven is at DToydSteven. Conrad is Conrad Zimmerman. Right? Yes, okay. Right. For once I got it right. Woo! And special thanks to Bill for producing this show. We couldn't do it without him. We'll be back probably next Wednesday. I think we'll still do a show. And
yay,
there's the heart. That means so. Thanks for listening.